Hello, welcome to another edition of Loose Pool. We're bringing two special episodes to you this week. Karl Boys, Joey Gray and Emily Frazer with me. On Friday's episode, we'll be talking about Team Europe, but today the focus is on Team USA because we are now less than 2 weeks away from the Party Poker Moscone Cup. It's that most wonderful time of the year. And guys, it's been a strange year, obviously. Not a lot of pool has been played, so not a lot of talking points that we'd normally have at this time of year. But before we sink our teeth into Team USA, just a quick update on the event, because of course it's a couple of weeks since we did the video where we said there wouldn't be any fans, but we're hopeful of having some fans. But since then, the UK has gone into full lockdown, so things have changed slightly again. But nonetheless, it's going to be a great Moscone Cup.
Yeah, I think whatever happens, regardless, it's going to be a great event. And like I keep saying to everyone, we're full steam ahead. The event is going to take place. Obviously, we were very hopeful that fans would be able to come in and spectate, but I'm sure it's general and public knowledge by now that we're in a national lockdown here in the UK until the 2nd of December, which is obviously day 2 of the Moscone Cup. I mean, there's so much speculation about being a potential pilot event and things like that. So at the moment, we're just focused on making sure the event happens. Everyone gets their ticket refunded automatically. Look, if there's a saving grace and we can let fans in for the last day, then fantastic. We'll not stop trying and exhaust all options. But it does look very likely that we're going to be going behind closed doors.
But nonetheless, lots of work being done to, first of all, make sure we have a Moscone Cup, which is something that was very important to all of us at Matchroom, Emily, but also to make sure that it's just as memorable as it always is.
I think that people are going to look at this and go, this was probably the most memorable Moscone Cup, not just because of COVID, but because of how different it's going to be. I like to think that there's a few silver linings in any situation, and I think this pandemic has opened our eyes to how we can do things in different detail, and we're going to be applying things this year that we're going to look to keep applying for future years, even when COVID's not a real sort of a global pandemic anymore. So it's going to be very different. We're obviously working very hard on the staging and things like that, and fan engagement. So all I can say is everyone just keep your eyes peeled on all of our social pages and see what we're going to be announcing, what we're going to be talking about, and just get involved with us, because it is going to be very different.
Well, also very different this year is the way the teams approach and train and prepare for the Moscone Cup because of the situation. So focusing in this episode on Team USA, we've got the vice-captain Joey Gray with us. And Joey, of course, very different. There's not been much in the way of tournaments. We've not seen a lot of the guys play. We don't know who's in stroke and who's not. But one of the things you guys have been able to do by being one country, being all in America, you have had some training sessions with the guys. You've been together as a group once or twice as well. So just tell us how preparations are at the moment.
Really the main thing is just checking where everybody's at mentally, and just making sure that they're staying consistent with their practice. And I mean, there's been a few events, so even recently, that they've gotten to really put themselves in the grease and get under pressure. And really, fortunately for me and Jeremy, we got to see how they were responding, playing some really tough competition. Because over the past year, it's been, you can practice all you want, but you can't get enough from that pressure. I mean, that's where it's at, and that's where you have to shine. And so we really got a good chance to see some of that this year. So that was pretty fortunate. But the private sessions, the one-on-ones that we did, were tremendously special for us to really, because we didn't think that we were going to be able to do any of that, and we worked around and tried to get everything figured out as well as we could, and it's worked out pretty good, honestly.
Karl, is that a little bit of an edge for Team USA? They've all been together this year.
Not really. I mean, he touched on it there. At the end of the day, it's about the pressure, and it's going to be unusual, as Emily just said. It's unlikely there's going to be fans, but we've just been saying, embrace it at the end of the day, because this won't happen again in our lifetime. You don't think, where the Moscones had 0 fans. So I'm excited, to be honest. I can't wait to get there. Forget the fans. I'll be there anyway.
If you test negative, that is.
If I get tested positive, it's a fiddle, because I'm not leaving this house. Listen, it'll be scandalous if I get positive down there. So there's been a stitch up. The Americans have fiddled with the test, or something's gone on, I'm telling you now. It's impossible.
Those postal results, Karl.
If I send you a surprise package, Karl, go ahead and open it.
One thing with Team USA, I find a bit of a strange thing this year, and I'll ask you about it first, Joey, is USA are going for a three-peat, but when you look on what people are talking about the event, it kind of seems like they can't shake the underdog tag. Like, everyone's still expecting that Europe will win the cup this year. Does the team mind that, the fact that they've won the last two cups, but perhaps everyone's still expecting that Europe will win?
Is it because they picked Chris over Tyler?
Well,
Frazer Fumes is back.
Listen, we chose our players based on what we saw with trending and compatibility and really just coming together as a team. But I really think that the confidence that we have and it just puts a lot of pressure on Team Europe. They have to perform, or it puts a lot of pressure on them. We being the underdog it's always more. I would rather be the underdog than the favorite. At any time, but I wouldn't even consider us the underdog because obviously we've won 2 years in a row and going on a three-peat. We want to maintain that title, and so I think the hunger is there for that. And Europe had a really good run, and obviously, they had several world champions several years in a row, and we changed the team. We got a better dynamic, and I'm really confident about this year.
Karl, how do you see it? Are Europe the favourites and USA the underdogs?
No, I don't think we're the favourites. No, I think as Joey just said, the USA the last couple of years they've gelled a lot better than the Europeans, and that's what we've been working on. So USA I would say are the favourites, but that's just what it is at the end of the day. We're happy going in as underdogs. The thing is, a lot of the pool fans know. Obviously, we're stacked with world champions and players who win big titles and things like that. But to be fair, a lot of the USA players never really travelled to the big events worldwide. It was always more European stacked. So, on paper, I think we are second favourites, and it's our job to, win the cup.
And both of the guys there mentioned the team dynamic at play, and that's something the USA have really turned around, isn't it? Karl mentioned Frazer Fumes there, and I remember one, behind the scenes in 2016, and look where we've got since then. It's a remarkable turnaround from the guys.
Oh my God, I remember that like it was no, that wasn't my worst Moscone Cup. 2017 was my worst one, but oh my God, I remember it. And Team USA was just so defeated and just so separated, and a little bit behind the scenes. It was probably the first time the players ever saw feisty Emily. But it just got to the point where without being a dick about it, but they were kind of ruining the event because there was no fire and there was no heart in it. And just listening to Joey and Karl talk about it, even though, so I saw something today where someone said, like, on paper, Europe kind of have it. And I agree with that. I do think that if you're looking on paper, the two teams with like newbie Chris coming in, on paper, Europe seemed like the stronger one. But I think with team dynamic and the fire and the passion, I think that's coming from Team USA, which is something that Europe are lacking. If it really comes to it, and it's heart is on the line, that comes from Team USA, and we've seen that gel and bond over the last couple of years, and that's a strength that through losing for so long and being such a separate team, it's kind of like it's good that Team USA experienced that, because now they're on this different path that Europe haven't experienced. So it's kind of like maybe Europe need to go through this little losing streak to get that passion back. So I think it's going to be close to call this year. I did actually just look up the betting odds for who for Europe and USA. So look. Can you see?
13-8.
So 13-8 USA, 4-9 Europe. You said you're not favourites, Karl, but in a two-horse race, that's pretty clear favourites with the bookies.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, I think they're just going off the players at the end of the day, world champions and, and all that. But, it is a team event. It's not a singles event. And it's about gelling. And, if someone's having a bit of a mare, the next guy goes on and it's all forgot about. And, just getting rid of it, really. It is a team event after all.
Well, I think about it. One of my favorite movies is Moneyball with Brad Pitt, and how they take the players and piece them together. And I feel like, USA has done that over the past couple of years. I mean, and Karl made a good point. You know, a lot of the Americans don't travel overseas all the time because obviously it is very expensive and sponsorship is key. And so you have a lot of really, really high level players that don't travel to Europe as much and play in these world-class events. And, you know, that doesn't speak to their ability having titles, but definitely the team dynamic is huge.
Let's chat a little bit about the individual players then. We'll start with Skyler Woodward because, I mean, Emily mentioned 2016 and 2017, and Skyler in particular struggled in 2017, and he turned that around massively to be two-time MVP, and he's become a guy. I heard a comparison last year to Johnny Archer in the way that in those days Earl was the guy who won the US Opens, and now Shane's the guy with the 5 US Open titles. Skyler might not get as many individual titles, although he has had some in his career, but he seems to be at the forefront of the American success the last couple of years. Joey, have you seen a difference in Skyler the last couple of years from when he was perhaps where he is now, where he's two-time MVP, to where he was before?
Yeah, his mullet.
Oh, yeah, the mullet, definitely.
I fucking hate those mullets.
I told him he's going to have to
gross.
shave his beard and just cut it right down the middle so his cue can go right in between it.
Listen, you guys are so lucky there's no fans. Jesus.
Are you joining the mullet hype, Joey?
Hey, you know, I'm calling it the ferret. It's the ferret. So my stylist said she's going to make it look like I just have an animal right across the top of my head.
Just so you know, British girls do not dig that kind of shit. Like,
hey, you know, mullets and muscles.
But to be fair to Skyler, when you perform like you have in your two-time MVP, I mean, come how the hell you want, because he's doing his talking on the table.
It doesn't really matter, and that's one thing I love about Skyler. You know, he's just so cut and dry with his talent, and the way he approaches things is just with sheer confidence. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, we've played golf several times, and you know, when it's the same strut that he has whenever he makes a tournament-winning 9-ball, whenever he makes a 20-foot putt. You know, you see that in him at all times, and you know, you can't help but feel his passion when you're around him. I mean, Skyler he really consumes the room whenever he's on fire, you know.
Moving on to one of the other, because it feels like America's got two really key players right now. One of them is Shane Van Boening, and I think you and I can both agree that when we first started working on the Moscone Cup at Matchroom, everyone always spoke about Shane, and for America to be successful, Shane has to be successful. And every year he seemed to struggle, and now it feels like the pressure's off a little bit because he's also got Skyler who's turning up and winning these clutch matches. Do you think that's really helped Shane the last couple of years, the fact that the team around him has improved and that's taken the pressure off and allowed Shane to be Shane?
I think he's oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
You go, Joe.
I think definitely, you know, over the years with all the Moscone Cups that Shane was playing, there was too many leaders. Everybody really felt like they had that role, and he kind of had that Tiger Woods factor, you know, that, I mean, Tiger didn't do well in Ryder Cups for quite a long time. His record isn't as great as it should be, but over the past few years, I think Shane connecting with these younger kids and actually accepting that leadership role and knowing and putting that, because I feel like Shane has to convince himself that he has to perform. And whenever he does that and he feels like he's fighting for his team, I think and he knows he's going to elevate their game by playing well. And I think that really getting to know Shane on a really personal level over the past year, I see that in him a lot, that more than I could have imagined, that he really plays that leadership role on this team. And obviously Skyler winning multiple tournaments, he can rely on that. He knows that it's not all on him. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it does play a big role that the team has improved, but also being younger has really given Shane almost that like, come on boys, let's go kind of role, you know?
Are you seeing that, Em? Is Shane become the dad of the team a little bit?
Well, you know, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I feel like Jeremy is for sure. You know,
I think Joey's right.
It's all I can do to get Shane and Billy to quit arguing with each other. But
I think Joey's totally right though, because I think also Shane's not felt that that value before. So he's probably not been, it's Shane Van Boening at the end of the day. And like what Joey said, there were so many leaders on that team beforehand. Whereas now he feels like he's probably a lot more valued, that, yeah, the team is still reliant on him. But again, there are other players like Skyler Woodward that can, pull it home sort of thing. So it's not all resting on his shoulders, but he is also, it's like a weird dad. It's not like the dad. It's like an uncle or something, or like the cool uncle sort of thing. But he is definitely taking that leadership role without probably even knowing it. Because they all look up to him, and they should do. He's so successful, and he's also, look at him. He literally, if he's not playing pool, he's fishing. Like, he's a sportsman. He grinds all the time. He travels from tournament to tournament. He is always there. He's got all his sponsors. He's the person that they should be looking up to. So I think he's really turned it around recently, and he's a good leader there.
Karl, a word from you on Shane, sort of from the outside. And of course, he makes that winning combo in 2018. Last year, he plays 4 singles matches last year. He loses twice heavily to Josh Filler, and then he wins 2 matches, both against Kazakis. What did you make of Shane at the table last year?
Yeah, I think he was probably a little bit like, I wouldn't say in awe, but kind of like that about Joshua, because he's like this, he's won, obviously, US Open, Matchroom's US Open, live on telly, World 9 Ball. He's like the new kid on the block. And, he's got that arrogance, and he's just not scared, Josh. He's not scared of anybody, as well. 99% of the pool world are, a bit in awe of Shane. So I think that just sort of got to him a little bit. But, at the end of the day, when you look back over the years in the Moscone Cup singles matches, certain players get a little bit of an easier ride, because it's like the fans pick. Is it going to be Jason playing Shane, Josh playing Shane? It's always that type of match, you feel. So they're gonna, it's no shock that Josh can beat Shane 5-0, 5-1, and Shane can do it back to him as well. If you go on first or third or something, you might get one of the weaker players in the team. No disrespect to the teams, but it's not that big built-up match. You guys build it up. It's the fans pick. Last match, like last singles match of the first night, it's always a big match, and it's always like the sort of 2 biggest names in the team. So, I think Emily's right, though. I think he's certainly coming of age now in the team. Certainly when I was playing, he looked like a beaten man, but I think Skyler's got a lot to do with that, and obviously Johan bringing the team together correctly, and obviously I've played under Johan, so I know what he does, and I think we've not seen the best of Shane in the Moscone Cup for sure.
Well, it's not just a 2-man team, and to move on to the other guys, I mean, Billy Thorpe, I think I said to him in an interview last year that he was kind of hype guy. He's the guy who gets the rest of the team going, but actually he also really delivered on the table last year. He plays 3 singles matches. He wins 2 of them last year. And Karl, you were there in Vegas. He came with some big shots at some big moments, didn't he, Billy?
Yeah, Billy's great. He's that type of guy you do want on your team, because he's always pumped. He could lose 5-0 and then go play his out in the doubles, and that's what the Moscone Cup is. It's not, if I lose, I'm out of a tournament type thing. You just got to forget about it. It's done. It's over. I can imagine, even though I've not been in the USA training room, I can imagine Billy's like shouting and giving it the big un and all this, and getting the lads pumped up, and that's what you need. And again, like last year, I remember on the last day when the team sheets come out, I genuinely thought Europe were going to win. I thought they were going to pinch it because of the way the team sheet went, and Billy come out and he beat Jason, and that kind of sealed it really on the last day. So yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt that really set the tone on the final day last year when he comes out and beats Jason Shaw, when I think a lot of people, like you say, we looked at the team sheet and probably thought Europe would take at least the first 2 points, and it could have been a completely different day last year, and he really stepped up with that. And another guy, Joey, I guess with Bergman, you could probably say Justin's one of the best pressure players there is in America. We see all the gambling matches he plays, real high stakes. So for him, the Moscone is a very different environment from what he's used to, but Joey, would it be fair to say that Justin is used to that pressure environment?
Oh, I mean, I would say 100%. I mean, this is obviously going to be a different year, and I think it took Justin a little time to get adjusted to certain things, certain factors of the Moscone Cup. I mean, a lot of people know this about Justin, that he likes to, he takes his time, very, very, very deliberate with every shot, and having that shot clock maybe seemed to have a little bit of an issue over the first couple of years in the Moscone, and I'm sure that's any player ever getting adjusted to that is very difficult. But Justin, he's found a way to adjust, and he's very methodical, but he knows how to use that time properly. And the pressure, I don't honestly, in his mind, he'll joke around and say, "Man, I was so nervous," but you can just see he's steady as a rock. I mean, he's just so confident, and he knows how to control himself under pressure. And I think that, I would agree 100% that he's definitely gotten over whatever kind of doubts he ever had. So.
And finally, Emily, I'm going to ask you about the last player in the team, the unknown quantity, Chris Robinson. We, certainly for people outside of the USA, we just don't know what we're going to get from Chris. And it's always exciting with the rookies, isn't it? Because we've had guys like Josh Filler who've turned up and really excelled. And on the flip side, we've had guys who've struggled because it's such a different environment. Do you even know what to expect from Chris? Because I definitely don't.
No, and I feel really bad because he's such a nice guy. So I don't want to say anything, not that I'd say anything bad, but I don't want to be mean sort of thing. But I think he's either just going to completely dog it or he's going to do exceptional. I do think that he is one of those players that is going to excel from there potentially being no fans there. So I think that's in his corner, definitely. I mean, he's a great player. Look, he's on the circuit, and his place in the Moscone Cup is justified 100%. But again, he's not really played in this stuff before. He's not really played in the Whirlpool Masters, the World Cup of Pool. He's not played like the Matchroom events. And I get that some of the other events are kind of stepping it up and creating this arena level. But my God, we did the Champion of Champions snooker, and there was no spectators there, but still in that arena, and the prestige of the tournament is still resting on everyone. And I do have a slight concern for Chris. I do. Like what you said, like Billy's like that hype man. I fear that Chris might be that guy that if he plays a bad singles, he'll be back in the practice room, and that's going to affect him for the rest of the tournament. I mean, that's why we got Joey and Jeremy on board to make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen. But I do think that someone like that will really get to him. That might, I could be talking out of turn. He could be totally different. But that would be my take on it.
And if anybody wonders, by the way, what a Moscone Cup without fans might mean to the players, just to take your Champion of Champions snooker example, head to the Matchroom Multisport YouTube channel, have a look at what it meant to Ronnie, because Ronnie O'Sullivan's playing Mark Allen. It's not going in his way, and it really mattered to him. Just have a look for that video on our Multisport YouTube channel. It just proved that, yes, the fans are a big part of all these events, but for these professional athletes, the event is huge, and the Moscone Cup is huge for all of these players. Before we end this podcast and look ahead to Team Europe in our next podcast, we put it out on Facebook that we were going to do a loose pool today, and we got a few questions in from people. So one of the ones, I'm going to put this to you, Joey, and we discussed this a lot in our last loose pool podcast, so search for that on your podcast providers if you've not seen it. But DJ Burris asks, why Chris over Tyler? He'd like an honest opinion. I think we did deliver that in the last loose pool, but Joey, just quickly, just a recap on why Chris got the nod.
Well, it was a very, very difficult decision. I mean, obviously Tyler had the experience, and he's been on the team 2 winning years in a row. So it was very difficult. Knew we were probably going to get a little heat for it, but at the end of the day, we did a lot of training with him and with Chris, and we just really felt like Chris was a very clear-cut decision to mesh with the team extremely well. And like Emily said, I mean, you never know until you know, but I felt, and Jeremy felt, that it was the correct decision. And I mean, we have probably over 100 videos of each player and training sessions, and spent over a week with both of them. This was not a decision that we took lightly. I mean, it wasn't just like we just said, oh, you know what, let's draw straws. We really, really put a lot of time into this, and felt like Chris was a clear-cut decision at the end of the day.
Couple more questions. I think actually I can answer these ones, but Emily, jump in if you wish to. First of all, Corey Wisecup asks, will Matchroom Pool broadcast the full Moscone Cup match or only highlights? Corey, it looks like you're in USA. It will be all live in full at DAZN.com, DAZN.com. There's also an app. You can get it on smart TVs. So sign up to DAZN. It will all be there, all live, all in full, not just the highlights. So that's the answer to that one. The next one, with the lack of tournaments in the past and in the near future, will Moscone Cup points events happen this year? That's from Mac Attack. Well, for this year's Cup, obviously, we've got the two teams. We would normally start the rankings again, usually with the World Championship or the last Euro Tour of the year. Those events aren't happening this year, so I guess we'll have some news on that in the new year. But obviously, right now, with travel restrictions around the world, there were no points events for this year's Moscone Cup since March. So we just took the top player off of the rankings from Europe and the top player off the USA, which I think has probably worked out quite nicely for the captains, especially on Europe's side. They got a little bit more carte blanche for who they picked. And with regards to next year's rankings, well, we'll have some news on that in the new year. And I think that kind of wraps up. If you have got more questions for us, by the way, do let us know on Facebook. Let us know in the comments to the Loose Pool podcast, because we will answer them. We've got a few more loose pools to do between now and the Moscone Cup, and we'll be back on Friday with one where we talk about Team Europe. But for now, Emily, Joey, Karl, thank you very much.